So today on the Low Ball Show, we welcome a man who has played for numerous teams in and around Scotland, including Celtic, St Johnstone, St Mirren, Ross County and Motherwell. Paul Lawson, thanks for joining me today. How are you getting on?
I'm good, thanks. It's a pleasure to be on.
You've kind of been about football for a lot of years, starting out at Celtic. What was the kind of experience there like? Because you were very much at the forefront of the reserves, and you captained the reserves for quite a while as well. What was that setup like and that experience to be there like?
It was great. It was not, not just personally, but it was a great time for the club. I signed my first contract in 2000, and Martin O'Neill obviously arrived that summer, which off the back of a bad year previously, he came in and totally transformed the club. So, that there was good times at the club as well. But on a personal note, it was great for myself. First full time contract, the experience of moving to Glasgow, try to settle in, um, adapting to full time training, which was my first pre-season. I'll never forget, and I'm sure a lot of boys say the same. It's very hard, but no, it was great times. A lot of great players, and certainly the youth team, and went on to have great careers. And I certainly thought we learned from some of the best coaches as well.
And you're just saying there about the kind of moving and settling in Glasgow. From being from Glasgow myself, how did you find that experience?
To be fair, it was fine. I think us boys up in the northeast, there's a say a misconception of life down there. But no, I moved into digs with a family, and there was five or six of the boys at the time, which was great. A few Irish lads and myself and another lad from Aberdeen. So it was a good experience. It was almost like living at home. You still got your washing done for you and meals cooked. So it was all part of the experience, but it was great.
From Celtic, you went out on loan a couple of times with St Johnstone and St Mirren. How did you find the experiences of those clubs?
It was great to be honest. I think as good as the setup is, I would argue your Celtics, Rangers, all the big clubs in the country, it's great. But playing youth football and reserve football isn't it serves its purpose, but at the same time you can't replicate playing first team football. And I got to the age where I played, I think, two years in the reserves, and spoke to the manager Kenny McDowell at the time, and Martin O'Neill, and it was kind of like, was it Martin O'Neill? No, it was Gordon Strachan actually. Really need to get out on loan and get first team experience, because that was important, and because ultimately, if you don't make it at Celtic or wherever, you need to try and carve out a career for yourself. And um, I went to St Johnstone, and they were top of the what we'd call the championship now, but the old first division. So that was a great experience playing under Owen Coyle. It goes. Results are important at Celtic at every level. Don't get me wrong, but when you're going to a changing room and these guys are fighting and scrapping for their win bonus every week, it was a bit of an eye opener. But a great experience, great lads, great team. Picked up some good results in the cup, etc. And I was only there till the end of December, and the guys were on, and they got pipped in the last day of the season by Gretna for the championship.
Moving on, to kind of push on in your career, you went to Ross County 2007, I
Yeah,
believe. And I think that's where you kind of really cemented into, I think you'd over 140 appearances at County. What was the experience like there?
brilliant. I think I still had a year of my contract at Celtic at the time, and again sat down with Gordon Strachan, and he sort of laid it out that first team opportunities would be very, very limited, and it would be in my best interest to kind of, let's say, go on and try and carve a career for myself. And the opportunity to join Ross County, who was then in the old second division, which is now League One, but they were still a full-time club. And knowing George Adams, Dick Campbell was the manager at the time, but knowing George Adams, the director of football, knowing him from my time at Celtic when I was younger, he was keen to take me up there, and it was a tough decision to make. Don't get me wrong. I felt you're at the top club in the country, and you're dropping 2 leagues, but I seen the vision of the club and where they wanted to go, and I thought it would be a good experience and moving north. And I know people in Glasgow think it's just along the road from Aberdeen, but it's still another couple of hours away. So I wasn't any closer to home, but it was another new experience for me. And we certainly built a good squad and went on a great journey.
Yeah, because you had quite a few successes as well at County in regards to league and cup. And what were they kind of moments like?
It was great. The first season we won promotion back to the Championship, and that was the aim of the club, to do that the first time of asking, and then kind of build on that. And so that was a great experience, winning your first senior medal, which was great. Although I did get one at Celtic, but that was kind of like a token gesture. It was the last game of the season when everyone gets handed their medals, and I'd only played three games or something, so I don't really count that. But to get my first senior medal was special, and a great group of lads, and like I say, the aim was to obviously kick on from there. And was it 2 years later we obviously had the run in the Scottish Cup, which probably really announced Ross County to everyone in the country. When we made it all the way to the final, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. And then the springboard for that was that was a springboard to go on and win the first division again 2 years later, and get the Premier League, which is, like I say, was the plan all along. And I think the way that the club done it, and they took their time and done it in the right way.
And then when you eventually, in your time, after spending, I think, was it 5 or 6 years?
6 years, yeah.
County, you then moved on to Motherwell. Did you just feel at the time was right to move, or was that another conversation that you had?
It was a difficult one. So at the start of that season, it was our first year in the Premier League, and at Ross County, and I played the first couple of games, then picked up an injury, and then never featured again till December. And that whole time, I was completely bombed out the squad. I wasn't featuring any match day squads and training the reserves, etc. So I thought the writing was on the wall, to be honest, and I'd sort of put plans in motion with my agent to start looking about. My partner at the time was living in Edinburgh, so I was kind of looking to maybe relocate down further south again. So we looked at options, but come December, just the way football is, I got myself back in the team and ended up playing every game, second half of the season, and we went on a great run from second bottom and ended up finishing fifth. So come the end of the season, I had the decision to make. Motherwell had come in. I'd met with the manager, really liked what he had to say, but I was torn because I absolutely loved my time at Ross County, loved everyone at the club, and it was difficult. But personal circumstances kind of came into it as well. My partner ended up just by chance as well. We thought it was fate. She got a job in Glasgow, and we thought that's trying to tell us something. So, whether it was the right or wrong decision, took that decision, and again, can't speak highly enough of the club. Great club. I really enjoyed my time there. Just unfortunate. A series of injuries just killed my playing time, and which was unfortunate. And the football side of things wasn't the most enjoyable 2 years of my life, to be honest. But again, I can't speak highly enough of everyone in and around the club, and made some great friends. And like I say, off the park, probably I did enjoy it, but on the park I didn't have too much success.
And I think because and that's kind of a big thing as well. And I know you touched on it there. In regards to the injuries, and obviously being as unfortunate as the serious injuries became, but as a player, how frustrating is it when you're sitting, because we see it all the time now, players in the sidelines and, they're maybe doing their own thing in regards to maybe watching a game on their phones or whatever. But I mean, really, how frustrating is it to be sitting there seeing all these guys that you're with kind of consistently playing and not being out there? Is that, so a lot of people say, that they get a pay packet whether they play or
Yeah.
not, regardless. But I suppose from that being your job and your career, and the kind of feelings on that must be totally different from it's just about a wage.
Yeah, not 100%. Yeah, of course you get a wage and etc. But the argument could be you get injured playing for that team.
Yeah,
People would say if you're off sick at work, you don't get paid or whatever. But but I think mentally it's really tough. I found it especially hard because I never felt I got a chance to fully establish myself as a player there and off the park. It wasn't great. My head wasn't great. It was really difficult. The hardest thing, you don't really get a day off. You're in every day for treatment, trying to, working hard to try and get back fit. And, a couple of occasions kept breaking down. And it's hard and it's finding the strength to keep going. And people say that must be easy because it's a great job. And yeah, of course it is. But when you're in that moment, it is difficult. And I wanted nothing more than to play and show the fans that, deserve to be there because I know I did get a lot of stick and the one thing I wanted to do was show them that I could play and deserve to be there, but it wasn't to be. But mentally, it was a very very hard sort of 18 months I had. Yeah.
when you then transitioned from leaving Motherwell, obviously a lot of the time it was due to the kind of serious injuries. Did you always feel like football was still going to be where you were going to be involved, just now in a different aspect?
I really didn't know. I think if you ask anyone when they're 22, 23, I think you'll play football forever. But you know you're not going to. And the harsh reality is that. But try to put plans in place. And I know the PFA are getting really good now at trying to set boys up for their future outside of football. But at that time, I still felt I had something to offer, but I wasn't confident my body would hold up to full time football. And that summer, I came back up to Aberdeen for a few weeks, and I was. It was nice to be home, sort of thing. All right, I'd visited for short spells over the previous 15, 16 years, but it was the longest I'd been home for that time. And the opportunity of a job came up, and I sat down and thought about, I had a few options to go on trials at a couple of clubs, and like I say, I wasn't fully confident that my body would hold up to it. So I was a bit concerned that if I knocked back the job offer, go on trial somewhere, break down injured, that I'm left with nothing, sort of thing. So as hard a decision it was, I took it upon myself to take this job in Aberdeen and look for part time football and trying to adapt to that was different. And it's then you appreciate what boys do. They work all day and go to train at night. So some days you could be leaving the house at 7 in the morning, not getting back till 8, 9, 10 at night. So it's long days, but that's what you do when you love the game, sort of thing, and you want to stay involved, which I certainly do. I like I say, mentally it was coming off my time at Motherwell was tough, but my sign for Martin, it did sort of get my love back for the game, and just enjoyed my spell there and playing before the management thing came along.
And that's kind of the part as well that I really wanted to look at was the kind of management side of it, because throughout your playing career, as you touched on earlier on, you were at clubs that had some great managers coming in. Did you feel when you were taking the step into management that you looked back and took inspiration or took anything from what these guys had done?
I think it's hard, and not in a disrespectful way, but I think part-time football, you need to have a different skill set than full-time football. So I did struggle to adapt with that because I think initially I was trying to as professional as you want things to be, don't get me wrong, you want to do them to the best of your ability. But I struggled with the, if somebody couldn't make training because they were working late or whatever. I couldn't get my head around that, because I was always used to that. That's your job, and you trained and that was it. But that was the hard thing that I took to adapt to. But I've slowly got better at that. Again, things like naming your team on a Wednesday night of training. Is that something you want to do? You have to have full faith in your players that they won't go out on a Friday night if they're not playing. It's little things like that. I think it is a different skill set. But of course, there's certainly certain things that you've picked up over the years that managers, whether it's a training session or how they conducted themselves, etc. Yes, certainly worked under some great ones. So I've got lots to sort of call on.
And with what you're doing, and what you've kind of done in football previously, up until what you're doing just now, because obviously you've played throughout the different leagues within Scotland. Do you see big gaps from the top league when you then start to move down?
I don't think, not in technical ability, no. Sometimes it's fitness, decision making on the park. But I wouldn't say there's a huge gulf in technical ability. Certainly, you come to Highland League, Lowland League, League Two, there'll be players that you'll go and watch and there'll be standouts, but for whatever reason they've found themselves at that level, because at one point in time the majority of the players have been in youth teams at in a Premier League club sort of thing, and for whatever reason it hasn't worked out. And whether, like I say, whether that's just a manager liking you, it could be purely down to luck, injuries, whatever, So there obviously is a gulf when it comes to if a Celtic or even Aberdeen, Hibs, Hearts, whatever, line up against a League One, League Two club. Of course, there's a gulf, but it's not always, like I say, in technical ability. I think there's a whole lot of things to that. And when I was brought up watching the Highland League, my dad was involved with Huntly for a long time, and so coming back and playing at this level was something I always thought I was going to do. It probably happened a bit sooner than I was planning, but it was always something I was wanting to do. And like I say, there's some great games at this level, and some very good players in this league.
And how difficult is it when you're now managing as well, it being part-time, to pre-season?
Again, you're probably trying to cram more in. You don't have as much time. The boys will moan or whatever, but I really enjoyed my pre-season with Gordon Strachan. Thought that was probably the fittest I ever was as a player. And again, with Derek Adams, try to combine sort of their two pre-seasons, but you're almost trying to cram it all in, 2 or 3 sessions into one. And credit to the boys, they've worked really hard, certainly this summer. But it is hard because you're wanting, as at full time, you can have 8 sessions in a week sort of thing if you really wanted, and you can do lots. But here we've got an hour and a half on a Monday, an hour and a half on a Wednesday, and we've managed to get a couple of double sessions in a Saturday, but that's all you have. So that the time constraints are really difficult. But you just to try and adapt to that and do as best you can. And yeah, full credit to the boys. They come in, they knock their pan in and go home. But it's again, like I say, it's these things that you need to try and adapt to.
And for the season ahead, do you look at whether it be individual goals or club goals that you're looking to achieve?
Probably club goals. You always put pressure on yourself, but I think it's as a club what we want to achieve. I fell into the Formartin job. Coaching wasn't something I thought about. The job was, the chairman just approached me and asked me to take it, and I look back now and I probably took it too soon. I was 32 at the time, and it probably stopped me playing. I tried to do the player manager thing and it was difficult. So I ended up probably not playing as much as I could. So when that finished and Banks O Dee offered me a playing role, I jumped at it. I was maybe probably too old, but I thought I could try and give it one more year because I really miss playing. It's the thing I love, the most. And came back in, but I sort of said to myself, if I picked up any injuries, you know, significant ones, I would probably just call it a day. But as things have transpired, I found myself again being approached to take the team along with Josh Winton, and like I say, it wasn't something I planned, but we'll go with it, and enjoyed it so far.
And how do you find down at that level the kind of set up of the leagues? Because I know across kind of Scotland, when you look at the lower leagues and then get into Highland leagues and things, there's been a lot of chat about how they're set up and how the breakthrough can be made.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people kind of, very mixed views and opinions on it. How do you feel with the kind of opportunities that then come about?
I think it's great the pyramid system's in place. I think there was a lot of chat, certainly with the Highland League clubs, that over the last few years that they maybe weren't keen to get into the leagues just due to travel commitments, etc. It does cost clubs a lot of money. But when Cove, shown what they've done, they've gone through the leagues with pretty much the same team that dominated the Highland League, and just shows you how good a team they were, and that they've gone through. I know, albeit they've been relegated there, but to get to the championship, and I think that showed the way, and I think it's gave the clubs the sort of desire to say, do you know what, we could potentially do the same if the structures and the right infrastructure is in place, and it certainly is here. It's just one thing I'm very impressed with the club as a whole. Just our stadium, the people we've got in the background, and everything's set up for us to be successful. So really, it's about myself and Josh being given the platform to go and try and be successful as we can, and that is the plan. It's not going to happen overnight, we know that, but there's plans in place, and there is certainly a strategy there, and how we want to do things.
And I mean, the one thing, I follow football right across the board, especially in Scotland. And there's a lot of really competitive games within that league. I mean, there's many teams within it that you wouldn't be surprised to see up there, at the end of the season. I found it to be really competitive. Do you take it kind of game by game when you look at it? Or are there certain games or teams that you enjoy coming up against more so?
I think it's at any level. The big games, the bigger the game, the better. I think everyone enjoys those. Don't get me wrong. It would be wrong. I've had my finger burnt in the past where I look at certain fixtures and you think, oh, I could maybe leave a couple out with a view to the game the following week, etc. And the game hasn't panned out the way you'd hoped. So there is, on any given day you might see some results in this league where teams are winning 5, 6, 7-0, but just as easily the following week could come up against each other again and it be 1-1 sort of thing. It's just it is competitive. People might look at there's a gulf between sort of the top 5, 6 and the rest, but we don't see it. We certainly don't see it that way. And every game's very difficult. Banks O Dee is a club have come up from the juniors. Being a very successful club, and we're certainly looking to continue that on.
And just to kind of take a wee step back again on your career and different managers that you worked under. When you think about the dressing room, whether it was a good result, bad result, I mean, was there kind of specific managers like whose approach you felt maybe worked best for you?
I must admit it's a difficult one as well, because I think sometimes everyone needs a blast. People say you can't do it as much nowadays. Boys more need an arm around the shoulder, etc. And I probably needed a bit of both, to be honest. I did need an arm around the shoulder, tell me how good I was, but there's no harm in getting a blast as well. On umpteen occasions, we always laugh now at Ross County the amount of times we'd come in at 0-0 or maybe 1-0 down, but we thought we'd played well, and the manager gave us an absolute blast, and he'd go out in the second half and be all like, let's do it for us, not him, sort of thing. But it was that mentality. But he was being clever in the way he did it, and we would go out and get the result more often than not. And there is different ways, and I think that's a strength of a manager on seeing what players need a rocket, what players need an arm around the shoulder, etc. And I know managers have favourites. It happens, there'll be certain people that never got a bollock in, etc. But that's football, and I think, like I say, a strength of a few managers was knowing who to and when to as well. You could come in after a defeat, and it's maybe not the time and the place to have a bollocking, so it would maybe be a chat, or sometimes nothing would be said, and it would be, we'll come back in tomorrow and we'll talk about it then once the dust is settled. So there's a number of different ways to go about it.
And did you ever find yourself being in the part of being a manager's favourite where you never really get any bollockings?
I can't. Do you know what? To be honest, I wouldn't say I was ever a favourite, but I wouldn't say I ever got absolutely roasted. So I was kind of in the middle. I would say I was maybe part of a collective rather than singled out. So I think at times myself and Derek Adams, I don't think we clashed, but I don't think we always agreed with each other. But it's again, that's part of football, and I think he also got the best out of me. So from his point of view, he did things right.
And I suppose as well it's constructive, because you're never going to be happy with people just sitting nodding their head, or maybe now you're in that side of it, you would be happy with no answers back.
Yeah, I think it is funny, and every manager you probably spoke to over the years, they'll say the same. One day you'll be in my shoes and you'll see it from my point of view, and I can certainly agree with that. And it's trying to tell boys now what I was getting told 15, 20 years ago, and I can just see them not taking it in, like the same as me, which is frustrating. But I guess that's, again, part and parcel of it all.
Again, when you look back in playing, because obviously you had some great highlights throughout your playing career. If I was to say it, and it's maybe not the most important one that you scored, but you'd scored a few goals. If there was one that just comes to mind for being the best that you'd ever scored, is there a specific one that jumps out and you're like, you know what, I couldn't have had it better?
There's a couple, actually. To be fair, I never got that far up the park, so there had to be long distance efforts. But probably one against Inverness, purely because it was in the derby. So that stands out. Scoring in a derby was special. And then another one, at Dingwall against Partick Thistle, probably from about 22. Well, I'll say 25. It's further out of it. I'll speak about it a bit. We'll say about 22 yards. Ball just got laid off, and then I've struck one at the top corner. So again, like you said, maybe not important, but I think we'd end up winning that game 2-1, which was nice. But nothing. It was just it was a league game. But again, it does stand out one I remember.
And when you look at the league, so if you look at now they set up with the Championship, League One, League Two, and it's kind of something that I ask a lot of people that come on. If you were to look at, say, League Two, is there a specific team that you would maybe pick out as being a team that you would expect to be there or thereabouts at the end of the season?
I think certainly League Two, you've got to Peterhead will obviously be looking at themselves to they'll want to bounce back, and obviously the new management in place, they'll be looking to stamp their authority on things, and they've recruited a few good players this summer, so they'll certainly be looking to push on, and let's say bounce back probably, because I think a club like them, they should be League One pushing for Championship, so they're probably the one that I would say that stands out the most for me.
And if you were to then look at League One and the Championship, is there any teams in there that you would be kind of picking out?
I think certainly the Championship is very difficult. I think every season people pick out two or three, and then it doesn't seem to quite work out that way, doesn't it? I think Dundee United again, they've got to be ones that'll certainly look to bounce back straight away. So it's going to be very difficult. I think Inverness will always, look to be pushing, and I think you're looking at certainly Queens Park and Park Thistle. Obviously, after being unlucky in the playoffs, they'll be hoping to go on better.
I think there was a time at the end of the season there where, based on results, there was like 3 or 4 different teams were getting promoted.
Yeah, yeah, which is great. I think that's great. I think it's you said that people talk about leagues and stuff and down in England the fight for the playoffs, but I think looking at that, I think it was the last day of the championship season, everyone bar one team had something to play for. So I think that just shows how good a league that one is.
And then when you look at League One, which I think this season, with there being quite a few full-time teams in it, along with your kind of part-time teams that have still very much got setups to go on and push. Is there anything in that league that you would kind of pick out and say?
Again, that's one that you probably would expect the full-time clubs to be, at the higher end of the table. But again, I'll look at Cove. They're coming down, and they'll be looking to bounce back up. And they've shown, our both have shown how, if you're organised and you've got the right players, being part-time hasn't held them back. So I think Cove certainly will be looking to kick on again after their disappointment. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, the full-time teams probably are the ones that you'd like to think would be pushing at top end.
And finally, Paul, with your season ahead, what's your kind of goals for next season?
We would obviously want to be up challenging. Of course, that's the aim. We're fortunate enough to win the League Cup last season, so winning another trophy would be nice. That is the aim. But we're just looking to build on. We've had to, we've lost a few players over the summer just due to we've had to trim the squad size and stuff. So there's a slight transition going on. But at the same time, we still think we've got a good enough squad and capable of being up there challenging. So it's important we get off to a good start.
And look, Paul, finally, I just appreciate you coming on, taking the time, because I know you've got training soon.
Yeah, yeah. I don't always wear this top,
So it's nice to see that you're in early for it anyway.
Yes, exactly.
So I appreciate that.
Got to set standards.
But I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for the time. All the best for next season. I'll definitely
it's been a pleasure.
Be up at some point to see a game. So I really do appreciate you coming on and taking the time. Thanks again, Paul.
No, thanks, John. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers. Take care.